Hi, today we're going to look at clauses, simple sentences, and complex sentences. Now, the most important thing by the end of this video is that you can differentiate between a simple sentence and a complex sentence, and also that you can change two clauses into a complex sentence, and possibly also divide a sentence into its clauses. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's get started first with a simple sentence and a clause. So if we look at the sentence on the screen right now, Scott plays tennis in the morning. That is a simple sentence, but it is also called a independent clause. Right. Now, what does that mean? That means that this right here is a complete thought, right? It is a complete thought. It has one subject and it has one verb. You can see there Scott is the subject. We've done subject and object before. So object and verb, right? Scott is our subject, plays is our verb. It's one complete thought. And what is the difference then between a simple sentence and an independent clause? Well, basically this right here, your full stop and where it is. So if I were to add another clause to this sentence, then it wouldn't be a simple sentence anymore. So a simple sentence has one independent clause in it, right? But if I were to say the following, Scott plays tennis in the morning, but not at night. Okay. So what I've done here is I've added something, right? So now there are technically two clauses in here. So that's different. So here it is both a simple sentence and an independent clause, and here it is just the independent clause that is part of this bigger sentence. So that's basically the difference. And a clause, a sentence can be made up of multiple clauses, but your simple sentence will always only have one complete independent clause. And that makes it quite easy to recognize. So here we have just some more examples of simple sentences, right? We like pizza, and clearly you can see there we being our subject. And here we have the boys went to the park, the boys, the subject, and then I here, I failed, is the subject. Now, one thing you need to make sure of is they have subjects and they have verbs, right? So here we have the verb being like, and went over here, and failed over here. Now, the first sentence has something that the other two don't. It has a direct object. Okay. So pizza here being the object. That doesn't change anything. Okay. These are all still simple sentences and independent clauses because they are one thought. All right. So let's move on to what makes a complex sentence. Right, so I will keep the simple sentence examples up here just so you can see it. So here we have a short, complex sentence. I saw a girl who had blue eyes. Now the first thing you'll notice is you have two verbs, right? And your first verb is saw, and the next one is had. So how do I know it's a complex sentence though? Well, I saw a girl. If I underline that and I remove that part, that can be a sentence on its own. That can be a complete thought. So that is an independent clause. And if I put a full stop there, that independent clause becomes a simple sentence. But that's not how it looks. It says, I saw a girl who had blue eyes. Okay. Now in this case, who, so the who is actually, this who is not an adverb, it's actually a conjunction. because that's the word that joins I saw a girl with had blue eyes. So, but if I were to take had blue eyes, that doesn't work as a sentence because it doesn't have a subject. Even if I were to add the conjunction who's it, who had blue eyes, it doesn't work. So that's what we call a dependent clause. Dependent because it can't stand on its own. Independent meaning it's on its own, right? Dependent, it can't work on its own as a sentence. So what you then end up with is you end up with a sentence that has two clauses, okay? But one of them is independent, I saw a girl, one complete thought, and the other one is who had blue eyes, dependent clause, right? And that creates your complex sentence. All right, let's look at another example. So let's look at a little bit of a longer complex sentence here. And I think this is an important one because you'll notice there is the conjunction because in front of it. Now, you've been taught don't start a sentence with because, but that is actually untrue. If you use it correctly, you can start a sentence with because. You can't have because and then only one clause. That doesn't work, and that's mostly how people make the mistake of starting a sentence with because. They'll just say like, because I'm happy, and that's one clause. So let me just show you that. So this right here that I have highlighted is not a sentence. Oh, and I spelled because wrong. Okay. It doesn't work, right? So that's incorrect. That's why people say don't start a sentence with because. But you'll notice here I have I like grammar, and I have spent a lot of time studying sentence structure. So you have two clauses. You have a comma here, and because is the conjunction, even though it's in front of the sentence, it's combining these two clauses to make a complex sentence. Now you're saying, oh, but sir, I like grammar can work on its own. Yes, but because I like grammar can't work on its own. It's an incomplete thought, right? So that's why it doesn't work there. And you have your complex sentence. Again, you'll see here you have your subject, okay, and you have the same subject over there, and you have a verb, and spent is your other verb there. So as soon as you see two main action verbs and two subjects or a subject used twice, you should be thinking this is not a simple sentence. And of course the comma gives it away as well, because the comma joins the two sentences. And if you see a conjunction, it will also help you to notice if something is not a simple sentence. So this is our independent clause, and here's, that's our dependent clause, and here is the independent clause. I have spent a lot of time studying sentence structure because this one works as a complete thought. That one doesn't. Because I like grammar, that doesn't work, right? You can still say this sentence down here and it will work, right? So we're going to look at 3 more complex sentence examples, and the first one we're going to look at is after my cookies are done, I will share them with you. So let's see how clever you are. If I look at the sentence, tell me where is the conjunction? Which one is it? I'll give you about 3, 4, 5 seconds to think about it. If you said after, you're correct, right? After is the word that's joining these two clauses together. Let's try with the third one, the second one. Even though I wasn't happy with my grade, I passed the exam. Let's see if you can find the joining words, connecting words for that sentence. About 4 or 5 seconds. If you said even, you're wrong. If you said though, you're also wrong. What you had to say was even though, right? So sometimes you have two words that work as a conjunction together. Let's do the last one. We visited the museum before it closed. Let's see. And your connecting word there is before. Okay, so let's highlight our conjunctions there. Let's highlight them in blue. Okay, because that'll help you. Right. So in a complex sentence, the conjunction can be up front or it can also be in the middle, because I could say, I will share my cookies with you after they are done. So then after is in the middle. I could also say, I wasn't happy with my grade even though I passed the exam. So you need to be careful. It's not always going to be in between the two clauses. It can be in the front. And even here, you can even put before. You can say, before it closed, we visited the museum. Okay. So now let's see which clauses are dependent and which ones are independent. So let's split these up. Okay, let's split them up. And there we go. Okay, let's look at our first one here. After my cookies are done, I will share them with you. Okay. And here you can see I will share them with it works, but after my cookies are done doesn't work on its own. So this one here is your dependent clause, and here we have an independent clause. Let's look at our next one. Okay. Even though I wasn't happy with my grade, I passed the exam. Okay. It seems like the longer one would be the independent clause, the one that works on its own, but it's not. I passed the exam is the most complete thought. I passed the exam. That's a sentence that works on its own. But even though I wasn't happy with my grade, it's not a complete thought. It's like, even though what, right? So there's your dependent clause. Okay. Let's look down here. We visited the museum before it closed. This one's very easy. Okay, which one of these will work on its own? If you said we visited the museum is the independent clause, that is correct because it works on its own. We visited the museum. Works perfectly well. Okay, then before it closed just doesn't work on its own. So there is your dependent clause. Okay, right. So there are your complex sentences and your simple sentences. Right, so just to review, your simple sentences are complete thoughts made up of only one clause, and it has to be an independent clause, a clause that works on its own. We like pizza, the boys went to the park, I failed. One subject, one verb. Okay, doesn't have to have an object. Right, then a complex sentence is made up of two clauses and usually a conjunction either at the front or in between the two clauses. Right, so I saw a girl is an independent clause because it works on its own. It's a sentence, it can't. But then who had blue eyes is your dependent clause because it doesn't work on its own as a sentence. Right, and then together they make your complex sentence. All right. One thing before I end the video, a useful tip for recognizing a complex sentence is to look for these conjunctions. Okay? They're called subordinating conjunctions, and you'll find them either at the front of the sentence or in the middle of the sentence between your two clauses. So after, before, because, although, when, since, if, whenever, unless, while, so that, even though. There are a few other ones. As you saw, you can even have who as one, but look out for these and the other rules I talked about to be able to notice what a complex sentence is and what a simple sentence is. All right.